Chair, the first witness to testify this morning is Dorothy. She has taken the oath before you in chambers, and an application has been granted by yourself in chambers under application number SEQ 27 2021. The order should be on your desk before you, Chair.
Well, just for the benefit of the public, we are starting late because the witnesses who are going to give evidence today are witnesses whose identity needs to be protected, and the delay is connected with the logistics that needed to be attended to in order to make sure that they have taken the oath and are able to testify. I have considered an application for an order aimed at protecting the identity of the witnesses concerned in regard to each witness, and I have been satisfied that in each case, a proper case has been made out for an order protecting their identity. I am going to read out one order and not all three, because they are basically the same, except for the names. That's correct, Mr. Pretorius?
That is correct, Chair.
Yes.
And if I may just place on record the orders that you have granted in chambers and will announce now are in respect of Dorothy, Frank, and Stephen.
Yes. Yes, I see that one is under the number that you gave earlier, plus 01, another one. Are they all under 01? The applications.
The other one is SEQ 26, and the third one is SEQ 04 2021, just for the record.
Okay, all right. I'm going to deal with the one for Frank. The order I grant in respect of Frank is the following. One, this application may be heard in camera and without notice to affected parties. Two, the witness referred to in this application and who is scheduled to testify today is to be referred to as Frank during his testimony before the Commission, and thereafter insofar as matters relating to the Commission are concerned. 3, the witness identity shall not be disclosed or published in any manner. 4, the names and initials of the witness shall be redacted from all affidavits and documentation presented in evidence. Five, when the witness testifies before the Commission, 5.1, No photograph or video or other image of the witness may be taken or published or broadcast. 5.2, no person may photograph or publish any photograph or other image of any person engaged in and or responsible for the protection of the witness when he gives evidence. 5.3, the witness need not be present at the Commission's hearing venue, that is the hearing venue, when giving evidence, but he may instead give his evidence from a separate and undisclosed location, the protected witness location. 5.4, no camera will be permitted in the protected witness location. 5.5, no person other than the chairperson, members of the Commission's legal team, the Commission's safety and security advisor, those necessary to assist or protect the witness when he gives evidence, or another person specifically designated by the chairperson will be permitted to enter the protected witness location without the prior written permission of the chairperson. 5.6, the oath or affirmation. 5.6 is to be deleted. So 5.7 becomes 5.6. An audio link from the protected witness location will be provided so that the witness evidence can be heard in the Commission's hearing venue when such evidence is given. 5.7, subject to the usual rules applicable to the conduct of the Commission's proceedings. 5.8.1, members of the public, including the media, may be present in the hearing venue in such numbers as may be directed by the chairperson. 5.8.2, sound reaching the hearing venue via the audio link from the protected witness location may be broadcast, and the proceedings in the hearing venue may be filmed and broadcast. I think the old 6 doesn't seem to be necessary, Mr. Torres.
Not necessary, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. And then the old 7 becomes 6. This order may be amended or supplemented by the chairperson at any time if, in his opinion, that is necessary to protect the witness or any person in connection with the witness evidence or to ensure fairness to any implicated person. That is the order, and that order is also granted in relation to witness referred to as Dorothy, and where in this order it says Frank, it will say Dorothy in the case of the order relating to Dorothy, and the same order is granted in relation to a witness to be referred to as Stephen, and where a reference is made to Frank, the reference in the case of the order relating to Stephen will be a reference to Stephen. So all those orders have been granted.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as you're aware, Dorothy is now available to begin her testimony. She is legally represented.
Yes.
And may her representative place himself on record.
Yes, please.
Chair, Advocate Vumbi Rendani. Chair, I must just note that previously I've been appearing under instruction of PG Matseka. I must just note to the Chair that there have been some change. I'm formally now on instruction from the State Attorney.
Yeah.
However, I must note that Ms. Palesa Matseka is here. She will also note appearance on behalf of Dorothy. And with that regard, she will further address the chair.
Well, are you appearing for Dorothy?
Yes.
Because if you are appearing, you are the one who must address me on behalf of the whole team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chair, Ms. Palesa Matseka will continue to receive correspondence on behalf of Dorothy. And she will also be communicating with Chair, also with the employer of Dorothy.
With the Secretary of the Commission.
With the Secretary of the Commission, correct.
Yeah.
Myself, I will be on brief from the State Attorney, officially from today. The issue has been on the pipeline, but it has been resolved, and I can confirm that I've got instruction formally from the State Attorney.
Okay, no, that's fine. I don't know what the issue is, but I probably don't need to know. As long as you confirm you are appearing for Dorothy, you have you're being instructed by attorneys. That's fine.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, I know my colleague, I'm almost ambushing. Good morning again.
Good morning.
Chair,
Yes.
should I just take this opportunity to place myself on record?
Yes.
I will be representing today, obviously, my name is Peter Adonis,
Yes.
as I appeared previously.
You have appeared.
I'm still on record for the former minister, David Mahlobo.
Yes.
And now I also act on the instruction of the witness, pseudonym Frank.
Frank.
That's correct.
Okay. No,
So I'm
that's
appearing
fine.
on for both
Okay. No, thank you.
today. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I take it there is no conflict there, Mr. Pretorius. I don't know.
Chair, they will emerge. There are conflicts.
There are conflicts. Yeah. I don't know. Are you aware? Are you aware? Or what is the position?
Chair, I obviously, with my ethical rules, have inquired insofar as the client is concerned and the documentary evidence that was presented to me.
Yeah.
From where I'm sitting at, Chair,
Yeah.
but obviously I will engage with the legal team.
Yes.
We have not, in actual fact, I've confirmed this with my initial client being the former minister.
Yeah.
And looking at the documents, as I
Yeah.
was briefed, there is no conflict from where I'm sitting at. But obviously,
Yes.
with caution, we'll thread, Chair, moving forward.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
But we'll see how matters turn
how
out.
it goes,
Chair.
yeah.
I'm
Okay.
glad to hear there is no conflict,
Yes, yes. Yeah.
according to my learned friend, but when we get to the detail, it
Yeah.
may turn out differently. Hopefully not.
Yeah. Okay.
Chair, the documentation relevant to Dorothy's evidence appears in Exhibit YY12 in Bundle SSA 02A.
Chair, I'm sorry to interfere.
Yes.
Chair, if I'm correct, I think Mr. Pistorius did mention the fact that the oath has already been taken.
Yes, it has been.
Yes, and my client just asked me to humbly request that she would like to address the chair before anything else.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, Mr. Pretorius.
Dorothy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you wish to say anything to the chair before you commence your evidence?
Her picture doesn't appear. We just
Yes,
see
I
her
will.
name. We just see her. Oh no, her picture is not supposed to appear. No, that's all right. I forgot that her picture is not supposed to appear. Dorothy, are you ready? I understand that you would like to address me before you start giving your evidence.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Yes, I'm ready, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to put my version forward and speak out against all the allegations that have, in the course of the commission, been said against me. I have, over the years, served my country with great pride and joy, never at once with any malicious or personal saving intent. Taking into account the nature of the work that I did, I have further had to compromise on my personal life because the code of conduct that we all served by was that the safety of the state and those under our care was always above our own personal lives. This led to me suffering a great deal and compromising much of what being human encompasses. As I sit here today, I can confirm that I carried out all my duties to the best of my ability, following all the rules, procedures, and observed protocols that were set in place and never serving my own personal interests. Given the nature of the sector that I work for, I would like to point out that in line with the one principle that governs our behavior, that being confidentiality, I carried out every single one of my duties on a need-to-know basis, careful to never cross lines or go beyond my scope of work, which was the doctrine that I understood from day one. Any questions asked were always only in line with gaining an understanding of what I was being tasked to do, and thus subsequently carrying out that task. It is safe to say that I was always careful not to ask for more. It is my intention in sitting here today and participating in this commission to testify to the best of my ability and work through with the commission to ensure that all questions are answered and endeavors of today are met. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. I have already expressed the Commission's appreciation when you were taking the oath privately for your making yourself available to the Commission to assist it. We understand from what I read in the affidavits that it is not easy, but I appreciate that nevertheless you and others are making yourselves available to assist this Commission. So I just want you to repeat that publicly, that we appreciate that you have availed yourself to assist the Commission.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you, Chair.
Pretorius, you may proceed.
Thank you. Chair, the exhibit which contains all the documents relevant to Dorothy's evidence is Exhibit YY12.
Yes.
There are a number of documents, including more than one affidavit attested to by Dorothy over a period of time.
Yeah.
With your leave, may I ask the witness to identify each relevant document when we get to it?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. But for the moment, may the documentation contained in Exhibit YY12 be put before you?
There are two or more affidavits by Dorothy, is that
yes,
right?
Chair. They are all referred to in the index,
Yeah.
which is at page 419.2.
Yes,
SSA
419.2. Hang on one second. Now, to the extent that any document or affidavit is an annexure to the main affidavit, they would fall under the main affidavit as an exhibit. But to the extent that there are affidavits that are standalone, then they would need to be separate exhibits. We can admit them as and when we get to them.
Yes.
Is that fine?
That's fine, Chair. The affidavit that we will commence with is the affidavit that appears at page 12 to 26.
12.
of the exhibit, but of the bundle, black number 431 to 445.
Okay, yeah, I think if you use the bundle number, the pagination of the bundle, that will make my life easier.
We use the black numbers, yes.
Yeah, 431, that's where it starts.
Yes.
Okay, you want her to identify that after
Yes, perhaps we should start there, Chair.
Yeah, let's do that so that I can admit it.
Dorothy, would you please go to page 431 of the bundle, SSA02.
Okay, I'm there.
Is that the first page of your affidavit in that bundle?
Yes.
And if you could go, please, to page 445. Whose signature
Yes, I confirm. That's me.
Is that your signature?
That's mine.
Right. And you attested to this before a commission of oaths on the 2nd of March 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
as far as you're concerned, are the contents of this affidavit, to the best of your knowledge, true and correct?
Yes.
Chair, may this affidavit then be admitted?
It will be Exhibit YY
12.
12.1.
12.1, yes,
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay. The affidavit of Dorothy that starts at page 431 will be admitted as an exhibit and will be marked as Exhibit YY 12.1.
Dorothy, if you could go to page 420, please. And we're at all times referring to the numbers in the top left-hand corner of each page.
Yes.
Is it correct that on the 20th of January 2021, the Commission addressed to yourself a request for an affidavit to deal with various matters? And that is the document that appears at page 420 and following.
Yes, I agree.
And the affidavit that has just been admitted by the Chair is the affidavit that you provided to the Commission in response to that request for an affidavit. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So what we're going to do is to go through your affidavit and at times refer back to the questions that were asked, giving rise to your answer in the affidavit. We could just do it that way, please. The questions are set out in Annexure A to the request for affidavit at page 422 to 424. Can you just confirm that, please?
I confirm. True.
All right. So if we go now to page 431, which is your affidavit, I'm not going to refer to your previous positions at the request of your legal representatives to avoid ease of identity of yourself. So if we can go, your background is, however, set out there. You have a long experience of employment within the SSA, is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
All right. We'll leave the detail in the written affidavit. But if we could go briefly to describe the system of dealing with cash, because it becomes relevant later in your testimony and in the testimony of other witnesses. There is a process that you set out in paragraph 4 that applies when cash is withdrawn from the SSA for special operations through the use of temporary advances. You set that out in paragraph 4. You see that?
Is that at para 4?
No, it's add
Or
para
3.
3, paragraph number 4 on page 432,
Okay,
add para 3.
okay, at para 3.
If
Okay.
you could just briefly describe step by step, please, the various steps you set out in paragraph 4.
Okay.
You can
Cash was withdrawn from the SSA for CDSO through the temporary advance system. A TA required that the member taking the advance to compile a memorandum known as a submission, requesting the advance and motivating the use of the funds for the specified operation or project. Once the submission has been approved by the person with the delegation of authority to do so, which was dependent on the amount requested, the member would then make an application on a green TA form and hand this to the Finance Chief Directorate with the authorized submission to process the payment. The Chief Directorate Finance would then issue a TA number to enable the member to withdraw the agreed amount of funds in the form of cash and/or electronic funds transfer. After the funds had been withdrawn and used, the member was then required to settle that advance, which required that he or she provide the Finance Directorate with the signed receipt of funds and/or invoice when services were rendered. Establishing that the funds had been utilized as contemplated in the submission, settling
Sorry,
an
just
advance
before you
also
go on,
required that Part A.
Dorothy, before you go on, I'd like to just ask you one question. When you say in line 3 of the second part of the paragraph, which required that she provide the Finance Chief Directorate with a signed receipt of the funds or an invoice when services were rendered, the receipt of the funds would be signed, would that be by the, for example, a source who received the funds? Who would sign the receipt of the funds?
It would be the service. It would vary. It would either be the service provider. It could be anybody, because when you say signed receipt, it varies. Whatever service that member was going to provide, whatever project that. So it would vary. I can't specifically say it's a source.
All right.
It
could be a source.
It could be a service provider in terms of a company.
Yes, or it could be a source, I presume. In other words, the final recipient of the funds would sign the receipt. Is that correct?
Excuse me, Chair, I didn't hear that part.
All right. Presumably, when cash is withdrawn and goes out of the SSA to its final destination,
Yes.
it is the final destination, whether that be a service provider or source or any other destination, that would sign the receipt. Is that correct?
Looks like there is a delay in whenever anybody speaks. I think she takes long to respond. Dorothy, can you hear me?
Chair? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you hear us quickly when we speak,
okay.
Or does it take time before you hear what we are saying?
Now, there was a slight
Delay.
interference, just a little bit, but I heard what he said. I think you said that the signed receipt would be signed by the source. I didn't. Can you please just repeat it one more time for me?
That was the evidence leader speaking to you. Is the chairperson speaking to you now? So I'm just checking whether there's a delay in you hearing what we are saying. I see you do take a little bit of time before responding, so I don't know whether it's the delay or what.
I heard you now, Chair.
Yes. Do you feel like there's a delay or you don't think there's a delay?
I'll hear him, but I heard you.
Do you feel like there is a delay or you don't feel that there is any delay before you can hear us?
There is a delay.
Yes. It's not long, but if the technicians can attend to it, that would help. I will assume that they can attend to it while we continue. So let's continue. Yes, Mr. Pretorius had asked you to confirm whether the source or the service provider, or the final destination of the cash would be required to sign the receipt. That was his last question.
Definitely, they'd be expected to sign the receipt.
Okay.
Then, thank you, Dorothy. If you would then go on, that receipt then would establish that the funds had been utilized as contemplated in the submission. You say that then at the end of that sentence. If you could just continue then, settling in advance.
Okay. Settling in advance also requires that Part B of the TA form be completed by the member for approval by way of the line manager. Once Part B of the TA form had been signed, the claim would be settled by the Chief Finance Directorate and the TA was then removed from the member's name.
Right.
Is it by way of the signature of the line manager? The approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Now, if you could just explain, I understand that when the temporary advance is removed from the member's name, the member would no longer be responsible for that amount and will therefore not be required to repay it if called upon to do so. Do I understand that correctly?
Correct.
All right. If you could go on then to paragraph 5. You continue with the process that is required.
Okay. Here it's in relation to cash withdrawals. All cash TAs requested had to be any withdrawal thereof. On any TA requested and approved, if the amount spent fell short of the amount taken and no cash was returned, the amount of the unpaid funds would be loaded on the system and deducted from the member's salary. Should there be monies outstanding or not settled by the member, they would not be allowed to take out any further money until the advance taken by them is fully settled.
All right. If you could just read the first sentence again, please, of paragraph 5. There was an interruption in the transmission.
Okay. All cash temporary advance requested had to be authorized by the CFO before any withdrawal thereof.
Okay. If we could...
On any TA requested and approved, if the amount of money spent fell short of the amount taken and no cash was returned, the amount of the unpaid funds would be loaded on the system and deducted from the member's salary. Should there be monies outstanding or not settled by the member, they would not be allowed to take any further money until the advance taken by them is fully settled.
All right. Now, Dorothy, there has been substantial evidence in regard to the required procedures within SSA for the use of cash and in respect of the use of temporary advances. I'm not going to take you to all that evidence. I just want to highlight one issue, and that is where a member has not settled a temporary advance in accordance with this procedure or at all, that member is not allowed to withdraw further monies. That's what you say here. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
But that system can be circumvented or avoided if that member says, look, I don't have authority now to withdraw money or cash, but I can ask someone else to do it for me. There's evidence that that happened. Do you know of that?
Yes, it has happened.
Right. If we could then go on, please, to...
I'm sorry, Mr. Pretorius, just before you go on, let me just get clarification. Dorothy, so the process of obtaining cash which you have described, it starts with the member who feels that he needs or she needs cash. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that member must prepare what is referred to, or must prepare a memorandum that you say is referred to as a submission. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair.
And in that memorandum or submission, he or she will state how much they need and for what purpose, and they will motivate for the grant of that cash. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair.
And who does he or she submit that memorandum to? Is it their line manager, or is it somebody who may not be their line manager, but who has certain responsibilities?
It's the line manager and line management from the Chief Directorate Finance.
Do they submit it to two?
So it would be the line manager of
the member?
Yes.
And the Chief Directorate of Finance?
Yes, it would be the line manager of the Chief Directorate.
Okay, please just
Hello?
repeat that. Just repeat your answer.
Okay. It would be the line manager of the member requesting the funds.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, the line manager of finance, depending on the amount.
Or will he or she submit the memorandum to two people?
It's quite a number of people, Chair. It's not only two people, it's quite a number of recommenders and finally to the approver.
Okay, but in terms of the person to whom the member submits the memorandum, is it to one person who must then escalate it if to various people who must all recommend, or the member must go from one office to another to submit it?
Yes, in our case, it's the member that takes it from one office to another.
Oh, okay.
Because we did not have systems externally.
Yes. And, but ultimately, did you say the final person is a finance person who must give approval?
The approval.
And is it the CFO or is it somebody else?
Okay, the CFO only comes in if the member is requesting cash. It's the CFO that can authorize that you can receive cash or not.
Yes, okay. We are only talking about a member who wants cash. So are you saying that in all cases where a member requires cash, the CFO must approve before cash can be withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And is the CFO the final authority to approve? In other words,
yes, on the green form there is a portion
Yes. There is a portion for the CFO.
In the green form, there is a portion that allows. Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Pretorius.
Right. Thank you. If we could go over the page, please, to paragraph 6. There was in the SSA a directorate responsible for ensuring the protection of the then President, Mr. Jacob Zuma, and the then Deputy President, Mr. Ramaphosa. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And you set out the duties of the directorate within the SSA in that regard in paragraph 6. But I'd like to go on to paragraph 7, please, on page 435. You refer there to 2 groups of individuals referred to as co-workers who were recruited and trained to be utilized by the SSA. Would you tell the Chair about those 2 groups, please?
Two groups of individuals whom we refer to as co-workers were recruited and trained and utilized by SSA. The first group was recruited by Mr. Lomo when he was then General Manager at Special Operations. The second group was recruited by him after his appointment as the DDG upon his request for curricular vetting of potential recruits. These were, to my knowledge, there were contracts between them and SSA.
All right, so you've left out some words there, if I can just fill them in. The first group was recruited by Mr. T. Lomo when he was General Manager at SO. The second group was recruited by Mr. T. Lomo after his appointment as the DGG, upon his request for curricular vitae of the potential recruits. These were not SSA members, however, to my knowledge, there were contracts between them and SSA. Have I read your affidavit correctly?
Yes.
Yes, if you could go on to the next paragraph, please. Or the next sub-paragraph.
Okay. On the instruction of Mr. T. Lomo, we at SO utilized individuals from these groups, including the PSS. To my knowledge, the co-workers employed in special operations were paid monthly salaries through one of our cover companies by our HR consultant at CDSO. May I continue?
Yeah, I think leave out the next paragraph because it refers to your office, but read the paragraph beginning with the words about 14 members, please, or tell the Chair about that.
Okay. About 14 members from the second group who were sitting at home after their training were then assigned to assist us at PSS.
All right. Now, the point that you are making here, I think, and this evidence must be regarded or had regard to in connection with other evidence that has been given, but co-workers recruited and trained to be utilized by the SSA in various tasks were not members of the SSA, but were paid by the SSA salaries to do their work. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. We could go then to paragraph 10 over the page, please. On page 436.
I just announced, Mr. Pretorius, that we won't be taking the tea break because of the time we lost earlier.
Sure, thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Would you go, please, to paragraph 10 on page 436?
Yes.
All right. Now, you will see there a spreadsheet format of references to the questions in the request for affidavit that we referred to earlier, and your comments in relation to those questions in the box on the right-hand side. Now, if we can deal with the first box, it says in the left-hand column, add para 9A. That is a reference to the request for an affidavit sent to you on the 20th of January. And if we could go to Annexure A and look at paragraph 9 on page 422, please. Paragraph 9 says, and I'm going to read it, and you can confirm to me if I've read it correctly. It is pointed out that the electronic TA record provided to the Commission by SSA reflects that you were involved in the withdrawal of 28.5 million rand in cash over the period March 2014 to September 2016. You are required to provide a full account of the aforementioned withdrawals, including the amount of, and then we get to A, 1 million rand allegedly used to pay MK veterans at the rally held by the ANC on 8 January 2016 in Rustenburg. And in answer to a request for an explanation in relation to that expenditure, you make a comment. What is that comment? And we're back at page 436.
Okay. By instruction of Mr. Dlomo, this was in relation to the rally held by the ANC on the 8 January 2016 in Rustenburg. We used MK veterans who were deployed to the Royal Bafokeng Stadium to assist with identifying and reporting on potential disruptive behavior of attendees at the events. The funds were utilized to cover the expenses such as stipends during deployment, transport fees, accommodation, and meals. Requested supporting documents for person settling the account internally was duly submitted.
All right.
So I think that, so are you confirming that you used, or 1 million rand was used to pay MK veterans at the rally held by the ANC on 8 January 2016, and that this was done on the instruction of Mr. Dlomo? Are you confirming that, Dorothy? Correct. Okay, and Mr. Dlomo referred to here.
Yes, correct.
And Mr. Dlomo that you referred to here is Mr. Thuli Dlomo or not?
Yeah, Thuli Dlomo.
Okay, all right.
If I may just ask Dorothy, you can answer the following questions. As a general rule, one would assume that the ANC would be responsible for its own security, or that would be the responsibility of the South African police. Why was it decided to use MK veterans to deal with the issues here, to identify and report on potential disruptive behavior? Firstly, they wouldn't be trained. Secondly, one would assume that the duty should rest upon trained persons, if anyone at all, as members of the SSA. Why was this outsourced to MK veterans?
Chair, Mr. Thuli Dlomo would be the better person to answer this question.
All right. You have no explanation for why MK veterans were used rather than the ANC's own security, the police, or members of the SSA?
Yes, Chair.
And what we do know, however, is that funds from the SSA were used to transport MK veterans to the Royal Bafokeng Stadium for the rally, and their transport fees, accommodation and meals were paid for by the SSA. Is that correct?
Yes.
We could go then,
sorry,
please.
Mr. Pretorius. Subject, obviously, to ensuring that her identity is not indirectly disclosed. I'm not sure that her evidence or her answer indicates how she gets to know about this. Whether she was involved.
Yes, she withdrew the money. So that is apparent from the introductory part of the question at paragraph 9.
Okay.
In other words, you were involved in the withdrawal of that 1 million rand, is that correct?
Yes, Chair.
And you would have known what it was for?
Yes, as stated in my comment.
Okay, do you have an idea, more or less, how much the stipend was that was given to them per individual, or is that something you don't know?
I don't remember, Chair, because I don't have copies of that, the settlement, the document in relation to that.
Yes, okay.
All right. Let's go then back to page 422, if you will, and look at paragraph 9B, which refers to another question put to you by the investigators. It reads, 1.85 million was withdrawn in September 2016, allegedly used to pay MK veterans used for #Occupy Thuli House. If we can go back to page 436, the second block, your comment appears on the right-hand side. What is your comment in relation to that withdrawal in which you were involved? Well, perhaps before we go there, what is Occupy Thuli House? What was that event?
Occupy Thuli House was, it was a hashtag that was created by certain individuals who wanted to come and occupy the offices of Thuli House on the day when the president and deputy president were to be at Thuli for their weekly meetings.
Yes, that was the former president.
Take place on the specific day.
Yes, and you're referring to the former president and the former deputy president. Is that correct?
The former and the current.
Yes, so the current in his capacity as deputy president at the time, is that correct? In other words, Mr. Zuma and Mr. Ramaphosa.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Dorothy, are you referring to a time when Mr. Zuma was the president and Mr. Ramaphosa was the deputy president?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right.
So there was a plan, I suppose you could put it that way, that certain individuals wanted to occupy Thuli House at that time or on that occasion. And what were the funds referred to, that is the amount of 1,850,000 rand? What were those funds used for?
The funds were utilized to cover expenses such as stipend, transport fees, accommodation, and meals of the MK veterans were deployed then. I worked with the head of the ANC security, which I'll not mention his name. Mr. T. Loma instructed me to make requisition and pay for all the expenses related to the operation above.
And you confirm that you were involved in the withdrawal of that amount of 1,850,000 rand?
Yes,
Okay.
Right. Now,
I confirmed.
why were the MK veterans deployed, as you say, at Thuli House, on funds paid for or funds provided by SSA? Was that to defend Thuli House?
I think, Chair, I think my answer is going to be the same as the one for the Rustenburg rally, wherein I think Mr. Dlomo, being the person that had requested that we utilize these people, he's the best person to explain what was the rationale behind having the MK members come to Thuli.
Right. But the MK members whose transport fees, accommodation, meals, and a stipend were paid for by the SSA, they weren't the persons going to occupy Thuli House, I presume.
Yes, they were not the persons to occupy.
All right. Let's then go to paragraph 9C, if I can take you back, please, to page 423.
Okay.
1.5 million rand withdrawn in February 2017, allegedly used for the State of Nation address related expenses, and which was transported to Cape Town by a SSA member and handed to you, that's Dorothy, which you allegedly handed to Minister Mahlobo at his official residence in Cape Town. That is the question. It's referred to at the top of page 437 in the table. What is your comment?
I didn't hear what it.
The question was whether you were involved in the withdrawal of 1.5 million rand in February 2017, allegedly used for SONA-related expenses, and which was transported to Cape Town by an SSA member and handed to you, which you allegedly handed to Minister Mahlobo at his official residence in Cape Town. It may be that you were not involved in the withdrawal, but it was handed over to you. You can clarify what you know about this.
And you deal with it, Dorothy, at the top of page 437, in the right-hand column, the top of the page, under the head comment.
Okay. Can I just correct something here, Chair?
Yes.
These expenses were not related to SONA in terms of my work. What I said there was that I was deployed in Cape Town for SONA, and then I was called in relation to this amount. Because I hear Pretoria's talking about its SONA expenses.
Yes.
I don't know what the money was meant for, but nonetheless, during my deployment, I was deployed to Cape Town for the SONA event. During my deployment, I was instructed by Mr. Fraser to receive a bag of money from one security employee of SSA and to take the same to Minister Mahlobo. I met the SSA member and collected the bag of money as was instructed from him. I then handed the money to the Minister Mahlobo personally at his official residence. I cannot recall if he signed for it or not, nor how the TA was settled.
Right. Where was this residence? Was it in Cape Town or Pretoria?
In Cape Town, the official residence in Cape Town.
Okay. All right, but you say you have no knowledge of what this money was intended for. And you cannot say that it was a SONA-related expense. Is that correct?
I'm saying I am not sure if it was SONA-related. I was deployed there for SONA, but I'm not sure if the funds were for SONA-related expenses.
Yes. And you say that you were instructed by Mr. Fraser to receive a bag of money from one security of employer of SSA and to take the same to Minister Mhlobo. Was that instruction given verbally in writing? How was it given?
Verbally.
Right. And you then met the SSA member. Was this the SSA member referred to by Mr. Fraser in his instruction to you?
Mr. Fraser wouldn't have known who specifically the member would be.
Right.
That's bringing the money.
So money, when you say bag of money, how do you know it was a bag of money?
Because I was told that he's bringing money.
Right.
Were you given
In a
a
specific
bag by the
amount.
member? Were you given a bag by the member?
Yes, Chair.
Did you get a chance to see whether there was money in the bag?
I don't remember, Chair, that part, whether I opened the bag or not.
Okay, but you were told that it was money that was in the bag.
Yes.
When you handed it
Yes.
to Minister, when you handed the bag to Minister Mhlobo, you actually say here in your comment, I then handed the money. Was any mention there made of money?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the answer.
As in, did he mention anything?
All right. From all the
Excuse me, Chair,
circumstances.
I didn't get that part.
Sorry, when you handed, as you say here, the money to the Minister Mhlobo personally at his official residence, did you hand it to Minister Mhlobo himself?
Yes, I did, Chair.
And from all that you were told, the instructions that you were given, and the circumstances of the receipt and transfer of the money to Minister Mhlobo, are you satisfied that you handed 1.5 million rand, as mentioned, to Minister Mhlobo?
I can't say I'm 100% satisfied that I handed 1.5. I relied on the instruction I was given that there's an amount of 1.5 that is coming, and then I need to take it to Minister Mhlobo.
All right. Are you satisfied from all the circumstances that you were handing money, if not the exact
Yes.
amount? Can we assume that from your evidence?
Yes, Chair.
When you handed the
Yes, Chair.
money or bag to Minister Mhlobo, did he open the bag in your presence?
I can't recall. I can't recall, Chair, if we opened the bag.
And you can't recall whether you ever saw that there was indeed money in the bag?
Yes.
Just try and remember as far as you can what Mr. Fraser said to you, and just try and repeat the gist of what he said to you. In regard to this issue.
Mr. Fraser informed me that there'd be an amount of 1.5 coming and that I should take it in to Mr. Mhlobo himself.
Yes, was he speaking to you over the phone, or were you with him when he gave the instruction?
We met personally.
Yeah, and where was this?
We met personally
Where was this?
in Cape Town. In Cape Town.
Or at an office or not in an office?
Now, it wasn't in an office, but I don't recall the exact, I'm not very familiar with the Cape Town Yeah, I'm not very familiar with Cape Town, but it was in Cape Town, not in an office. It was in a parking somewhere. I don't remember where. I drove there and I waited for him and he came there with his car.
Okay,
And we spoke.
Was it just the two of you?
Obviously, he came with his protectors.
Oh, okay. Okay. So he said a certain member, and I assume he mentioned the name, would bring money to you, about 1.5 million, that he said you should take to the minister. I just want you to tell me how your conversation with him went. I just want you to try, as far as you can remember, to say this is how our conversation went.
Okay. The conversation was that there'll be money coming. He did not indicate who the person is that's going to bring the money. I was to receive a call. So he wouldn't have known who's bringing the money because he issues an instruction and then somebody delegates a member to bring the money. So he wouldn't have known who brought the money. But I am going to receive a call and there's money that's going to be coming. I must take it to Minister Mahlobo.
Also, he didn't tell you who the member is who was going to bring the money to you?
Yes.
He just said you were going to receive a call, and he didn't say from whom, and that after that call you would then be given money, which you should take to Minister Mahlobo.
Yes.
Did he specifically say you would be given money, or did he say somebody would bring you a bag and you must take that bag to Minister Mahlobo, and you assumed that in the bag there was cash?
Chair, I knew it was money because he informed me.
He told you it was money?
Yes.
Did he tell you the amount?
Yes.
What amount did he tell you?
1.5 million.
All right. And when you had you been to Minister Mahlobo's official residence in Cape Town at the time, before that? Or was this your first time?
Yes, I had.
You had been?
No, it wasn't my first time.
Okay. And
yes, I had been.
Tell me how the conversation between you and Minister Mahlobo went when you came to his residence.
I wouldn't recall that, Chair. It's been a while back. I wouldn't recall
do you remember
what conversation me and him had.
Do you remember whether you just gave him the bag and he took the bag, or whether you told him that you had been asked by Mr. Fraser to bring this money and it was supposed to be 1.5 million rand, or whether you didn't mention that? Can you recall whether you didn't mention that?
I don't remember, but I don't recall, but sensibly I would have that conversation to say, Minister, I've been instructed by the DG to bring this to you. I wouldn't just walk in and leave the bag and leave. Definitely a conversation would ensue where I would be informing him that I was tasked to bring this to him. But we wouldn't discuss figures with him because that wasn't my place to ask for me. It was just to do the drop-off.
Okay, so in the conversation between you and Minister Mahlobo, there wasn't any mention of cash or money? Or was there?
No.
Okay, Mr. Pretorius?
There wasn't any conversation. I just informed him that I was tasked to bring this back to him. I knew what was there.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you. If we can move on to the next issue.
Maybe before you do so, Mr. Pretorius, with regard to the earlier amount that you testified about of 1 million rand, so that one you know quite well because you withdrew that amount, is that right? The one relating to the MK veterans in Rustenburg.
Yes.
But after you had withdrawn it, how do you know that it ultimately was paid to the MK veterans? Obviously, I don't want you to say anything that might directly or indirectly disclose your identity, but obviously somebody listening to this, yes, you say you withdrew it, yes, you say it was used for the MK veterans, but were you involved in the actual handing over of cash to the MK veterans, or did you give the money to somebody else who you understood would be giving it to the MK veterans?
No, I personally was involved.
You were involved?
Yes.
In actually giving the money to the MK veterans?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right. And was the actual giving of the money to the veterans, did it take place in Rustenburg?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, on the day of the event, or after, or before?
The stipend is usually paid after the event. And obviously the food is on a daily basis.
Yes.
And the accommodation is once off. Yeah, so it varies. It depends on the days because the food they eat on a daily basis. So
yes. Well, for how long were they there, the MK veterans in Rustenburg, in connection with the event of the 8th of January?
Chair, I wouldn't recall, as I said, that the documents would actually guide me in the sense as when did they come and when did they leave.
Okay, all right. Mr. Pretorius?
Thank you.
They drove from different venues, so I wouldn't remember when they came and when they left. Whether it was the day before or 2 days before, I don't recall.
Okay, okay. Mr. Pretorius?
Then in paragraph small d on page 423, another topic is drawn to your attention and you were requested to provide an explanation of certain transactions. Subparagraph D on page 423 reads, 500,000 Rand, which was paid into your bank account in December 2014, allegedly for a safe house situated at blank, Western Cape, providing full details of the purpose for which the house is or was used and details of the occupants thereof. And your explanation appears in the second box on page 437. Would you place that before the chair, please?
Do I read from I met?
Yes.
Okay. I met Mr. Alan Nixon on the 19th of November 2020, where he asked me about the 500,000 that was transferred into my bank account. I said to him that I was not sure about this, but will go and get a printout of my bank statement to verify this transaction. I received my statement and called Mr. Nixon on the very same day of the 19th November 2020 to inform him that I can confirm receipt of this money. I further informed him that it was for furniture and other expenses which were related to the rental of the safe house at Blaubergstrand. Mr. Niston asked for the physical address of the safe house, which I had forgotten. I then called Lily, who also could not remember the exact address, but that it was in Windsor Close at a cul-de-sac. Excuse me?
No, I'm sorry. I came too late to say you shouldn't mention the address, but be that as it may. The last paragraph?
Mr. T. Loma instructed me to make a requisition and pay for all expenses related to the above.
Was that claim settled and the expenditure of that amount settled by way of receipts as you set out in your affidavit?
Yes.
The name Lily, of course, that you use there is a pseudonym. You say Mr. T. Lomo instructed you to make a requisition and pay for all the expenses related to the above. What is the above? The expenses related to what?
The house.
The safe house.
The expenses related to, yes.
This was in 2020, November 2020, is that right?
No, Chair.
Well, I thought that is what...
The November 2020 is when I had a discussion with what...
I was saying that I see that you say I met Mr. Allen Nixon on 19 November 2020, where he asked me about an amount of 500,000 rand that was transferred into...
He's the investigator concerned, Chair.
Yes. The 500,000 rand had been deposited into your account, is that right?
Correct, Chair.
Before who had deposited that amount into your account, if you are able to say? Where was that money coming from?
It's an EFT from SSA.
From SSA. And what were you supposed to do with that amount?
Is to pay the expenses related to the acquisition of the rental of the house, which is inclusive of furniture and other things related to the house.
Was there a safe house that was to be obtained or rented, and you were to pay the rent and pay for furniture for that safe house?
Yes, Chair. A rented safe house.
Yes. Well, Mr. Pretorius, I can understand the previous transactions, but I'm not sure. It's not apparent to me whether there would be something irregular about this one.
No, Chair.
Yeah.
She was asked to explain, and an explanation was given,
Yeah.
and her evidence says that it was done in accordance with proper procedure.
Okay, all right.
So no point will be made
Yeah.
by the legal team on that issue.
Okay.
If we could go on, please, to paragraph 10, which appears on page 423 of bundle SSA 02. If you could go back to page 423, please, Dorothy. You were asked certain questions about Project Construção. That project has been detailed in evidence that has been given before the Chair before, but essentially you say that you were not aware of co-workers who performed protection services and were part of Project Construção. That's apart from what you've already told the Chair in relation to the two groups of co-workers that you referred to earlier. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
10.3 says, asks for your explanation rather, in relation to the withdrawal of cash for Project Constrasau referred to in the documentation attached marked Annexure C10, including details of to whom and for such purpose the cash was provided. Chair, if I may just say, the annexures that are referred to here are all collated in Bundle 1, which is before you, and they will be referred to only where necessary. Your explanation or comments, Dorothy, appear on page 438 at the bottom of the page. Did you sign a submission in respect of funds to be utilized for Project Constrasau? And do you have any comment in that regard?
Chair, you bear with me. I have hay fever, so my voice would every now and then have a glitch. I signed this submission in my capacity as the acting general manager.
All right. And
so when this submission was developed, I was acting general manager.
right. And you say in the second paragraph, my signature and recommendation was guided by the fact that Lily would have vetted and verified content of the submission before same was presented for my recommendation thereof. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
All right. Let's go on to paragraph 11, please. You are asked to comment on the following statement, which appears at page 423 at paragraph 11. With regard to Project Maiboya, please indicate your knowledge of and or role and or involvement in 11.1 Operation Justice, Operation Commitment and Operation Lock. 11.2 the withdrawal of cash for Project Maiboya reflected in annexures M5, M16, M17, M18 and M19, indicating in each instance for what purpose the funds were withdrawn and to whom payment was made. Your answer appears at page 439. You say in paragraph 11.1, I was not involved in the conceptualization of Project Maiboya, nor played any role in the operations of justice, commitment, and lock. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Subject, of course, to what is said below.
Chair, I didn't get that.
Dorothy? Okay, maybe Mr. Pretorius, you can put the question, let her answer.
Right.
Put the question and let her answer.
Paragraph 11.1 asks for, well, let's go start again so that it is clear. On page 423, in paragraph 11, you are asked of your knowledge of certain operations. And your answer is at page 439, paragraph 11.1. What is that answer? So go to paragraph...
I was not involved in the conceptual. 11.1.
Yeah.
Okay. I was not involved in the conceptualization of Project Maiboya, nor played any role in the operations of justice, commitment, and lock.
Dorothy, where you're sitting, have they provided you with water or tea or something to help you?
Yes, I am. I am drinking. As I said, I do have a bout of flu, which is hay fever. So
Well, if you need anything, you
Okay.
can
that's
just
why my
ask.
voice will. I think we will.
Well, Mr. Pretorius, I had said we would not take the tea break, but maybe we should have 5 minutes or 10 minutes break.
Yes, perhaps, Chair.
Perhaps okay, we'll take a 10 minutes break. We adjourn. Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Chair. Dorothy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Let's then move to the question which appears on page 423 in paragraph 11.2. You're asked in that question to give detail or explanation in relation to the withdrawal of cash for Project Maiboya, reflected in annexures M5, M16, M17, M18, and M19, indicating in each instance for what purpose the funds were withdrawn and to whom payment was made. Now, those annexures appear in a bundle which should be before you, bundle 1, and I'm going to ask you to turn now to page 439, where your comments in relation to those documents are contained. Okay? So, do you have bundle 1 in front of you?
Yeah.
If you could go to page 384 of bundle 1, please.
Yes, I do. It's
That is annexure M5, which is one of the documents referred to in the question put to you.
yes.
And if you could go, please, just briefly through from page 385 to 386. The signature at the bottom of page 385, above the date 15 November 2015, whose signature is that?
That's my signature.
And if you go to page 386, there's another signature next to the date 15 September 2015. Whose signature is that?
That's my signature.
The approval by line management appears to be a ST Lomo. You confirm that?
Yes. Yes.
And if you go over the page...
I'm sorry, Mr. Pretorius. Is ST Lomo the same person as Thulani Lomo, or is it somebody else?
It's Thulani Lomo.
Okay.
And then if you go over the page, there's an acknowledgement of receipt. It reads, "It is hereby certified that I," and it looks like Moses. Do you know that person?
No, I don't know who Moses is.
"Received 5 million rand, amount in words 5 million rands only, for the purpose of," and it reads, "for the Project Maiboya, 2.5, I presume that means million rand, and the word appears to be commitment. Ops Justice, 1.8 million rand. Safe return, 700,000 rand. Do you see that and those words? Do you confirm that?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
What do you know about these transactions?
Okay. As I've indicated on the comment section, I said copies of the application documents would be necessary to enable me to verify this transaction. Lily would have to give an account of this transaction, as in all instances where there's any transaction outside of my scope of work would be a request to assist in taking money in my name. And then I alluded to the fact of the receipt at the back, saying that the receipt is in Lily's handwriting. However, this is not her signature on the document. I'm not aware as to whose signature this is. I cannot explain on Lily's behalf, as I have no clue where or whom this money was taken to.
All right. Let's take a few questions step by step, please. The receipt in Lily's handwriting, on what page does that appear in bundle 1? Is that page 387? You say that is Lily's handwriting?
Yes.
Correct. And you say that that transaction was outside your scope of work, but your name could have been used to assist in taking money. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why would your signature appear on those documents?
Okay, my signature would appear in the sense that I'm taking the money in my name, so I have to be the one that signs for it on the green form.
But you're taking it for someone else who's actually dealing with the project, is that right?
Yes.
Would that be necessitated, for example, if Lily had outstanding TAs which had not been settled? Would that be a circumstance which would require this? Is that right?
Yes, Chair.
Was that the case in regard to this transaction? Why did you, on this occasion?
Chair, it would not.
So let me repeat.
Chair, with this transaction.
Okay, let's start again. Let me put the question. Why did you, on this occasion, sign for the amount and allow the amount to be taken out in your name?
The only time, Chair, that I would take money out in my name, which is outside of my scope of work, is when I'm assisting them to take money. If somebody within the project managers or Lily herself have outstanding TAs that need to be settled at headquarters.
And in that situation, why would it be right to to allow somebody else to take money in your name? Shouldn't they settle their TAs timelessly if they've taken cash out of SSA for legitimate projects or operations?
That's true, Chair. But in some instances, the explanation would be that maybe a service provider has not supplied them with the invoice as yet, and the work needs to continue.
And why would the person who must authorize if the money is taken out in that member's name in those circumstances not understand that? In other words, if I have unsettled TAs in my name and I need cash for legitimate purposes, why shouldn't I follow the normal process with a view to taking money out in my name, even if I have TAs that have not been settled, but on the basis that the explanation that I will provide will be acceptable to the person who must approve?
Yeah, unfortunately, that answer, Chair, it would be finance that needs to respond to that, because that rule came with finance that A person cannot have two TAs under their name. One needs to be settled before they can take further advances in their name.
So does that mean that the relevant authorities would not accept any explanation and give and approve the withdrawal of cash in favor of a member who has got a TA that has not been settled?
Chair, I can't answer on their behalf, but I'm assuming if the person would have went to explain, something would have come out of it. But in this instance, I'm not aware what was the situation.
You see, I'm asking because I'm hearing evidence of a lot of irregularities that were happening at the agency, SSA, and some of it seems to be criminal and so on. So if, as I understand the position, the policy of the organization is we will not approve cash withdrawals in your favor as a member if you have a TA that has not been settled. If that's the official position, and one would expect that there would be exceptions if you provide an acceptable explanation why you have a TA that has not been settled. And then if your explanation is acceptable, then you would have cash allowed to be withdrawn in your name. But if they don't allow any exception, then it must be that they regard it as a good reason to say settle first the TA before we can approve cash. So why should you go to another colleague and say, get it out in your name for me? Because it's for work. If your superiors don't think you have a good reason to have that unsettled TA, then you won't do that work. They know it's because of their rule. So why should you circumvent that process and go to a colleague and say, take it out in your name, but it's for me? That's my concern.
I understand your concern, Chair. Mr. Dlomo signed this green form, the TA, knowing the fact for well that I do not deal with projects and this money was not for my work that I was doing. So I won't be able to really answer in terms of the question that you asked, whether they went to finance to negotiate the second TA or not. But the fact that Mr. Dlomo signed the green form, for me, it says he was aware that I'm taking the money and the person that was supposed to take the money, why they did not take the money. Hence, I think I said that I won't be able to account, but I think Lily would be the best person really to talk to this transaction specifically. But I understand your concern.
Yeah, you see, what comes to my mind is that if you have a valid reason as to why you have a TA that has not been settled, that is in your name, if you put that valid reason to the authorities, one, they should accept and then should approve that you get cash for a legitimate purpose. Or if they don't approve, then they should accept that you can't work with the cash until that TA has been settled. Once you have a situation where a member who is in that situation goes to another member and ask that that member should take the money out in her name, that seems to me to be irregular. That seems to me as if that member seeks to get that money for an illegitimate purpose. Because if it is for a legitimate purpose, there is no reason why it should not, the authorities should not approve that the cash be given to him or her, even if he has got a TA in his name, because they are satisfied that there is a good reason for the fact that the TA has not been settled, and they are satisfied that it is for a legitimate purpose. You understand that?
I understand, Chair.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Pretorius?
Thank you, Chair. Just in summary, Dorothy, it seems that two issues arise out of the evidence you've given and what you're about to tell the Chair. The first is that a member of the SSA may have not settled a temporary advance. That person then, in terms of the rules, would not be authorized to withdraw further cash. But that system or that rule was avoided by asking someone else who was authorized to do it for the person who was not authorized. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair. Chair, can I just add on something?
Yeah, your line seems to be breaking, but just try again.
As I said now, when you said illegally, when you've taken the money illegally, I beg to differ with him because in the submission, hence I said here, copies of the application documents would be necessary. In the submission does not talk to a person. It talks to a product. Hence, they could use that submission to request anybody to withdraw the funds.
Well, are you saying that there is nothing wrong in a person, in a member who is, as I understand the position, disqualified from receiving cash, circumventing that rule by going to a colleague and saying, obtain cash not for yourself but for me?
No, Chair, I'm not saying that. I am saying the statement that Advocate Pretorius alluded to earlier to say that I took the money under my name illegally so. So I wanted to just justify that by saying in the submission, it doesn't talk to a name. So the person could go and ask anybody to assist in taking the money. I am not talking about the process itself of me taking the money. I'm talking about the submission in the sense that the submission does not have a name attached to it. Had it had some as illegal in the sense that I cannot take money when less the submission has got somebody else's name written. But I understand the fact that he says, how do a person take money on behalf of another who has not settled? Hence, I am saying there's Mr. Dlomo's signature on the green form. He would have known by then. I would have asked Lily, why are you making Shireen take the money? Sorry, of course.
Yes, I'm making a general point to you, Dorothy, and that general point is that at times the rule that a person who has not settled a temporary advance may be evaded or avoided by asking someone else to do it for them. That's all I'm putting to you. That has happened, and you've confirmed that. Correct?
Noted.
Okay.
Yes.
You agree that that has happened? as opposed to just noting what I'm saying.
Yes, Chair.
All right. And the second issue that arises is that it seems that documents authorizing withdrawals of cash and documents confirming that cash has been expended by way of a receipt or other document are often signed by people who don't know what was done with the money. Is that correct? Generally, not a specific case here.
Can you repeat the question?
You've said that there is a trail of documentation which authorizes the withdrawal of cash, the expenditure of cash, and accounting for the expenditure of cash. You described that earlier in your evidence. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Now, that process requires various persons at various stages to sign authorization or receipt. Correct?
Authorization of receipt.
No, authorization for the expenditure of money on the one hand, well, the withdrawal and expenditure of money on the one hand, and its receipt at the end of the process. Different people signing at different stages, right?
Yes.
But on occasion, and it seems on more than isolated occasions, persons would sign without knowing what the money was for or how the money was spent.
True, Chair.
All right. Let's then go to the next box, which is M16. I'm not sure it's necessary for us to go to the document, but M16 is a submission dated 5 September 2016 requesting authorization to pay the related expenses for Project Maiboya for the months April to August 2016. It was recommended by Dorothy. Part B of the temporary advance reflects that 13.15 million was taken by Darryl and the claim settlement was approved by Dorothy. And certain invoices are attached, and it goes over the page, and a company called Maiboya is mentioned. Now, perhaps it's better that you go to SSA Bundle 1 at page 468, please.
Yes, I'm there.
What was the page, Mr. Pretorius? Page number?
468 of Bundle 1. In fact, you can start at page 469. And if you could just go, please, to page 472. You see there, request for authorization, payment of related expenses as per the approved Project Maiboya, recommended, and then there's a signature. Whose signature is that?
That's my signature.
All right. And if you go to page 476, Yes, in the middle of that page, this is one of the green forms. Section 1, approval of incurred expenses by line management. Whose signature is that there?
It looks like my signature. It's my signature, Chair.
Mr. Pretorius, is that the one under section 1 that you were asking about?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Then there are further documents which refer to a company whose pseudonym is NAPA, N-A-P-A, that appear on page 478, 479, and 480. You see that? These are documents in relation to these expenditures provided by the SSA about which you were asked questions. But I just want to draw your attention to the fact that on page 478 it's indicated that professional fees as per the approved contract were paid in relation to Project Maiboya. Do you see that? 5,300,000 rand.
Yes.
And then over the page, 479, 5 million rand. Again, professional fees for Maiboya. You see that?
Yes.
And on page 480, professional fees as per the approved contract Project Maiboya, 2.850 million rand. You see all those documents?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, Chair.
What do you know about this documentation? You will see that your signature appears in respect of that documentation on some pages.
Chair, when this submission was done, I was acting general manager then, and Daryl was acting. I think Daryl was acting DDG, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And it would seem that he took the money and then came to me to sign off his settlement.
Right.
Which I did.
Did you know anything about the services to be provided that appear in this documentation?
No, Chair.
But you signed as part of the authorized. Yes, Daryl would know. Daryl brought it to you, but he didn't tell you what the money was for, as I understand your answer.
Yes, it was only for Project Maiboya, but what specifically, no.
Right. But was it normal practice for someone in a senior position to sign without knowing what the money was for?
It wasn't normal practice, but I assume because I was acting general manager then, that he would have come to me, not looking that he's a senior person than me, but rather my acting capacity at that point.
Okay. It would seem unusual, to put it at its lowest, for someone to authorize expenditure in these amounts of several million rands without knowing what the money was to be used for or what the money was used for. Do you agree with that? In fact, it would be irregular. And I'm talking about what happened in practice. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
You got cut. I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, you got cut. I didn't hear the last part.
Yes, I stopped myself because I was interrupting you. Please answer.
No, I'm saying in the environment that I worked in, we worked on a need-to-know basis. So as long as there's a submission that's approved for the project, I wouldn't question as to what the money is for, because it wasn't in my place to know that. So the need-to-know principle was always applied within my environment.
All right, so someone may authorize the expenditure of funds, but because of the application of the need-to-know principle in this, with these circumstances, that person wouldn't know whether the money was going to be spent in accordance with the submission, whether it was going to be spent properly, whether it was going to be spent at all. Is that how the need-to-know principle works in these circumstances?
True, Chair.
Right. Let's then go to, well, there are further examples in relation to reference document M17 and M18. The circumstances are similar. But let's go to M18 if we could. Well, perhaps for the sake of completeness, we should just mention M17. That document appears in SSA Bundle 1, page 481. The documentation is summarized as follows. Submission dated 3 October 2016 requesting authorization to pay the related expenses for Project Maiboya for the month of September 2016. Part B of the temporary advance reflects that 4.51 million rand was taken by Darrell, and the claim settlement was approved by Dorothy, and then attached were certain invoices. What is your knowledge of that, as stated in the comments column to the right?
It would be the same as the M16,
Right.
where I say that I signed the settlement for Darrell at the time because I was acting GM, but have no knowledge as to where or who or what the money was meant for.
All right. Can you confirm, though, that 4.51 million rand was withdrawn or taken by Darrell in cash for the purposes, at least as appeared on the documentation, of the execution of Project Maiboya?
I'm relying on the documentation, and that's what it says, Chair. So,
All right.
I'm assuming that's the amount.
Yeah. Well, it's the documentation you signed, correct? Or you signed the settlement at least. Correct.
Yes.
M18
Yes.
is a similar circumstance. The document appears in SSA Bundle 1, page 494, but I'm just going to read the summary. Submission dated 26 October 2016 requesting authorization to pay the related expenses for Project Maiboya for the month of October 2016. Part B of the temporary advance reflects that 4.51 million rand was taken by Darrell and the claim settlement was approved by Dorothy. So it seems that on a monthly basis, at least in this period, 4.51 million rand was withdrawn in cash for the purposes of the execution of Project Maiboya. Is that correct? According to the documentation, at least.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, Chair.
And your explanation in the right-hand column, what is that?
That's M18, am I correct?
Correct.
signed the settlement as Mr. Fraser had approved the withdrawal of the cash. Daryl was my senior at the time and I was acting GM at that point.
All right, let's go to M19 because you do know about that. M19 appears at page 504 of V1, if we could go there, please.
Okay, I'm there.
On page 505 is a request for authorization payment of related expenses as per the approved project Maiboya. And at the bottom of page 506 is a signature. Do you know whose signature that is? Can you recognize it? It's cut off slightly, but you recognize that signature.
506.
Page 506.
Under compiler.
Yes.
That's Lily.
That Lily's signature, okay. You'll see that under the head, paragraph 3, financial implications, that same amount, covert action expenses, 4,510 million rand. Do you see that? Same amount as the previous 2 months. Do you see that?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And on page 4 of that document, which is at page 508, there's a signature against the date 1 December 2016. Whose signature is that?
That's my signature.
And on page 509, at the bottom of the page, under cost implications, it's very unclear, but one can make it out. The amount required, 4,510,000, that's 4,510,000 rand. Under the head section 3, cost implications on page 509. Do you see that?
Yes.
And at the bottom of that section is a signature above the date 5 December 2016. Whose signature is that?
That's my signature.
The amount appears clearly in the right-hand column, 4,510,000 rand. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then over the page, page 510, there's another signature. Whose signature is that in the middle of the page?
That is the
That's
first
my
of the two
signature.
signatures, huh? Looks like there are 2 signatures, or is it one, Mr. Pretorius?
There's one signature next to the date 5 December 2016.
Yeah. Okay.
That Dorothy confirms, as I understand it, is her signature. Underneath that, there's the name AJ, and you can't read the initial Fraser, and the date 2/12/2016. Do you recognize that signature?
Yes.
Whose signature is it? Are you able to
Mr.
identify?
Fraser's signature.
Mr. Fraser's signature. And then there's receipt, and we'll explain this in a moment. 470,000 rand. Do you see that?
No, I don't see that.
All right. Do you see at the bottom of page 510?
There's a receipt.
The receipt, yes. The words 470,000 rand appear. Do you see that?
510.
Yes, bottom of page 510.
My 510.
It's written in words.
Oh, yes, I see that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I see that.
And then on page 512, at the top of the page in handwriting above the green print is a word settlement. Do you see that?
Yes.
And in the middle of the page, signature by claimant. Whose signature is that?
That's my signature.
And then on page 513 is an invoice, professional fees as per the approved contract, project Maiboya, and the amount of 4,510,000 rand. You see that? I'm not going to mention the name of the company.
Yes.
Right. That document then is described in the left-hand column at page 440 of your affidavit, and your comment is on the right-hand side. What is your comment?
That's
And please
page
don't
4.
mention that.
And my comment says, this is one of the,
Sorry, can I stop you there for a
I
moment?
mustn't mention,
The name of the company.
Just 1 second, Mr. Pretorius, for the transcript.
Okay.
It's page 440 of the bundle 2.
Yes.
Yeah,
I apologize. Did I not
440
mention
of the affidavit. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Are you there, Dorothy?
yes, I'm there.
The bottom of page 440, you provide an explanation for the contents of the documentation that you've just been shown, M19. What is your explanation? But please don't mention the name of the company in the last line.
Okay. Okay. This is one of the instances where I took the 4.51 million in cash to Minister Mahlobo at his residence. I do not know how the invoice from this company was generated for the settlement or how it was provided to by Lali.
Right. And then there's an explanation for why the amount of 470,000 rand appears that we've just referred to. What is the explanation for that?
Yes. Okay.
What
It
is-
appears that I initially took 470,000 and then the balance later, as sometimes there was insufficient cash available.
All right. Now, did you withdraw 4.51 million rand in cash or 470,000 rand in cash?
I don't remember very well the specific transaction, how, whether I took the 470, waited, and then there must have been a delivery on that same day, and then I took the balance.
But did you have money in your possession on that day? Leave aside the amount for the moment.
Yeah.
Cash.
Yes.
Was it in a bag? Did you put it in a
Yes.
bag? Right. Did you put the cash in the bag?
Are you saying, did I specifically put the cash in the bag?
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
All right. And what did you do? Where did you go?
I took the money to Minister Mahlobo's official residence.
Right. And to whom did you give the money?
I gave it to him personally.
Right. In which room in the residence? Can you remember?
The study.
Right. And what happened in the study, if you would just tell the chair, please, what you recollect of what happened when you walked into the study.
When I walked into the study, I then informed him that I brought the money, would take it out, I'd count it so that he's satisfied that it is the specific amount, and then I'd put it back in the bag and leave.
All right. So is it correct that in his presence you counted out the cash in the amount, whatever amount was specified and supposed to have been handed to him? Is that correct?
Yes, Chair.
Did you take this money to him on somebody's instruction?
Yes, Chair.
On whose instruction?
Daryl.
Okay, and when was this? Was it November 2016? I'm looking at your document here. When was this?
I don't remember the specific date when he informed me that I'm going to be having to do that. He informed me when he was acting DDG, he informed me that I would have to take over the role of taking the money because he's been doing it prior to me. So it couldn't have been that specific day when I took the money. The specific day would have been that this is the day when I said you need to take the money, go and take it, but he had informed me beforehand.
Oh, but are you able to tell which year it was when you took the money to Minister Maiboya on this occasion?
Chair, the date of withdrawal of the money would be the same day that the money is delivered. Immediately I withdraw the money, I would immediately take it to him.
Yes, but are you able to say whether that was 2016 or 2017 or when it was?
2016.
2016. Towards the end of the year?
Yes, yes, according to the documents.
Yes. You withdrew the money and you put it into a bag, and then on the same day you delivered it to Minister Maiboya's residence. Is that right?
Yes, Chair.
This particular residence to which you delivered it, was it in Pretoria, was it in Cape Town, or where was it?
In Pretoria.
Yes. And when you arrived at his residence, was he the only person that you interacted with, or did you first have to speak to somebody else who then told you in which room he was, and you went there?
Chair, since when I arrive at his house, the protectors would obviously be outside.
Yes.
So that was my first point of contact.
Yes.
And they would then inform him that they.
Yes. And would they have then told you to go into his study?
They wouldn't have told me to go into his study. They would have said, he says that I must come in. They wouldn't come into the house with me, because obviously when I enter the door, he would be there waiting for me.
Or he was waiting for you when you entered the door?
Yes, the protectors would have informed him that I'm here to see him.
Yes.
Then I would wait for them to come back to me to tell me that I could go in and see him.
Was there a conversation that took place between you and Minister Mahlobo, other than you saying, I've brought you money, this money, or something to that effect? Did he say anything himself?
No, Chair. I don't recall.
He didn't say anything? Or you can't recall whether he said anything?
I don't recall. Yes. I don't recall our conversation.
Yes. But you counted the money in his presence, and when you were done, you then left?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right. Mr. Procuris? I see we are at 1:05.
It's a convenient time, Chair.
Yes, okay.
No, Chair, maybe I will take the opportunity to, during the break, to discuss with the legal team.
Okay, no, that's
It was
fine.
around the evidence, in particular, the annexures.
Yeah,
But
okay, all right.
I'll address it with the evidence.
Okay, no, that's all right. We'll take the lunch adjournment then, and we will resume at 2:05. We adjourn.